Hi everyone, I'm Patrik from Patrik Windsurfing. Today I would like to answer the question so many riders have. What has changed between a slalom board 10-15 years ago to today? The main reason is actually the fin. The first reason why fin designers or fin makers changed from G10 to carbon was mainly because of spin outs, and you can also play with the twist flex.
Hey guys, let me quickly explain what Patrik is talking about here. So when we have a fin that we have right here, when we bend it in this direction, this is what's called flex. So how much the fin is bending in either this or this direction. Whereas twist is the side-to-side rotation around the cord length. Meaning, when we put pressure on the trailing edge of the fin right here, that the fin rotates. That means that you can see the back of the fin twisting away from the general direction of the fin, basically.
G10 fin, the twist flex is controlled by the thickness and the outline of the fin. While on the carbon fin you can have any outline, any thickness, and then with the layup, with the orientation of the fiber, you can actually decide how much twist and flex you want. A fin with a bit more twist seems to be faster and more slippery, but it's more sensitive for spin outs. And on a G10, it's actually hard to block the twist, because when the profile gets thinner at the back, this is also why you have more twist at the tip. On the carbon fin, you can change the layup. You can have different orientation of the fibers. So for example, 45-45, so you can block the twist while still having more flex. Blocking the twist was a big step to actually killing the spin out. Because of that, you gain more confidence, you feel safe, you can push more on the fin. Because you're not spinning out, then you suddenly feel like, oh, I can mount my straps a bit further back. And with that, the board is a bit more free, so you have less wetted surface, you gain more speed, you don't spin out. And after that, you felt like, okay, I can go one more step back, but then maybe the shape wasn't perfect anymore. So we changed the outlines on the board to adapt on this new, let's say, free position of the board. Step by step, we went further back, further back, further back. A decade and more later, this is what we have. So when you look at the old boards and the more modern boards today, when you look at the board from 2000 to a 2025 board, you can also see that today the boards are much thicker. This is again because if you want to gain control, stability, because you're afraid you're pushing the board into a spin out, you tend to actually rather have like a little bit like a thinner board. If the rail gets thicker, you're also staying a little bit higher, and you have actually more leverage, more push to push against the fin. So with a G10 fin on a modern board today, you will for sure just always end up having a spin out. While with the carbon fins, you can just push as much as you want, and you just accelerate and have a very free sailing position. Also because of carbon fins, the board width has changed drastically. 25 years ago, the boards were longer, 240, 250, while today they are like around 230. This is also because the flats, let's say from the tail to under the front foot strap, the board, let's say the slalom board, is flat. So you have a nice stable platform, so the board can be driven locked in over the water surface. So back then, the flat surface was longer, it was even up to 1 meter, and today it's even actually under 80. Because of the carbon fins not spinning out, being able to have a much stiffer fin and still have it thin, we're also able to have longer fins. So if you remember back the Formula windsurfing fins, they were like 70, and because of the length of the fin, you needed to have more leverage. So the straps needed to be more outboard, so the boards just became wider and wider and wider. With the cutouts, the idea is if the tail surface is full, so if you're sailing over a chop, but when you almost pass the chop and the chop is at the very back of the fin or even behind the fin, the board is pushing down. So if you have the next upcoming chop, the board nose is actually really like impacting into the upcoming chop. And again, this impact after every chop is slowing it down a lot as well. So with the cutouts, when you go over the chop, when the fin area is right on top of the chop, you actually almost like push the tail through the chop. So the nose is not falling down as much, and the board starts to impact under the mast track. So the board nose is not digging into the water and is not slowing you down so much. When you have surface around the fin, you create more power, more pressure around the fin, which is actually needed to actually avoid a spin out. So with the cutouts, which go very close to the fin, when you sail over a chop and the fin is in the air for that split second, when you go back into the water, it's actually easier, and it happens more often that the air sucks to the fin and you end up having a spin out. So if you have a board with cutouts very close to the fin, if you use a G10 fin, you will feel immediately that you will just constantly have spin outs. Because of the carbon fin, we could also reduce the area around the fin and make the cutouts. So in the old days, if you see someone sailing, that it's more like the nose doing like this. While now with cutouts and the modern boards, it's more, let's say, the nose is stable and it's just the tail which is going up and down. So you can basically almost like skip or jump from chop to chop. Another point is that the boards 1.5 or 2 decades ago were narrower and longer, but they also had sharper rails. So not as much curve from the widest point of the board to the bottom. So they were straighter. Otherwise, the water will wrap around the board or even suck up the board, because the board is touching more at the front, and then this water gets dragged all the way along the hull. So sharper rails don't jibe as good. Like say, if you look at the wave board, the rails are super round, so to have the maximum turning ability. But for a race board or slalom board back then, the rails were sharper, but because the board was not as wide as today, the jibing was still, let's say, quite easy. Today with the wider boards, it's much harder to jibe, especially when it's choppy, because this really wide surface is just bouncing more. But because of the more free riding position, we were able to give more tuck at under, because when you're fully in planing position, the front is not touching as much, so not sucking as much water up the rail. But when you go into the jibe, you put pressure into the front, you actually lower the front, you almost dig it, and then you carve through the turn with the round tucket around the mast track. The summary between the difference of a slalom board 1 or 2 decades ago to today is basically the fin. The material has changed from G10 to carbon. Because of that, we were able to move the foot straps more over the fin. Because the board was more free, we could make the board shorter. Also, the wetted surface under the foot strap was reduced by, let's say, about 20 centimeters. And then because of that, we were able to change the sail, open up the loose leech, which is reducing the downforce even more on the board, so the boards got even freer. We were able to put cutouts in and just all into the direction, reduce the wetted surface. Something like that.